What's interesting about living life is to know ourselves and to notice how to live, how to make the most of the situation. And this may sound nonsensical, but let me give you an example from various angles. For example, my brother had a stroke, and as a result, his left side legs area is not moving. And that tells that whatever happened in the brain in a stroke has a connection to the leg. There's a nervous system, some part of the brain cells blocked or somewhere dead, probably. That's his explanation to me. And as a result, the connection is not good. But by training, rehabilitation, by continuous process of how to move, I would imagine meditative sense of emptiness and focus on the area may help to activate, because that's my background from Vipassana, that when you pay attention to all the bodies and the mind and everywhere in our being, it responds. It's like a quantum that activates. The more you can activate the area, even if certain part of the brain may be dead, the cells are dead because of the stroke, but there are others still left, and there's a new circuit to be developed. And that's part of the rehabilitation, that you train yourself. If you move, pay attention, and try to move your leg on this way or that way, that start to rehabilitate, or neurons in that area that was dead can be replaced by other neurons developing some kind of a circuit. So that's very profound, if I may continue this logic in various other areas. First thing I can think back is when I was 6 or 8 years old, quite young. I was walking back the street. There was a big fair amount of traffic on the street, and then go back to our home from the bookstore. And there's a center safe zone area with a tree and a lawn in this road. So there's a division, but the division stopped at certain area, and farther down where we go toward our house, there's no center zone. So as we are walking back, I told my father, why don't we go across to the center zone, and then looking at the situation on the other side of the street, you can go across. And that way you don't have to take a chance of going across when two traffic going to one direction and the other direction has to be quiet to go across. It's kind of obvious thing. So I suggested that to my father, and he was quite surprised that this little boy had such an idea. And I could overheard him talking to my mother exactly that sense that he had, that this kid had some talent. It's a talent, but it's the same as the case of this neuron and developing the circuit in our brain to connect to the area so that you can move your leg. Because if one doesn't work, you can find the other way. If you notice that, as much as we can notice how to go across the street by taking not only one way but the other direction, so that you have a safe way of going across the street. So that's noticing, and that's a small, it's like a mini wisdom. And we are full of that. And if you get those two examples, an extent, you can go into multiple directions. Let me give you maybe, I don't know if it's the third example, but talk about the Zen koan. This popped up. And popping up is interesting by itself because I noticed something to talk related to the subject so that I can make my point clear or clearer. So in this Zen koan, there's a son and the father is a robber, stealing things from someone else's place. Ethically, there's an issue, but let's go beyond. So the father decided to test his son to see if he's qualified to be a good thief. So what he did is to bring the son to a warehouse where some treasures are stored. It's a big house, wealthy family, and even samurai was perhaps living in the main house. So he brought that warehouse and sneak into it, and there are things around, but the father said, why don't you go inside in this box and see what's in there? And there was a big box, so he went in. And what he did is interesting, that he shut the top of the box so that, and then locked it, so he cannot get away. And the father left. What do you do? The son thought about it and came up to this answer. I may not remember the whole thing. But first thing he did is to make a noise. Some kind of noise, maybe the noise of the mouse, and making big noise. So the people in the main house came. What happened? So he came down and noticed that noise is coming from this box, the big box where he was hiding. So they opened up the lock, and as soon as it happened, this son jumped up and gave everyone a surprise. Before that, he was making a noise of a mouse. Now he's just like a monster jumping out of the box. And when they're surprised, taking that time, opportunity, he ran out of the house. And as he ran, the people are following him, running. Then he saw a well, the Japanese well, watered down and pick up with a pail, to get the water. And finding the rock nearby, the big rock, he threw that rock into the pond. So they noticed, they noticed that he went into the well by mistake. So given that kind of an idea, he could escape. So that's the koan. And the koan is for you to figure out the meaning of it. I didn't do this koan with my roshi, but that's the setting, that the main idea of the koan is they'll put you into the difficult situation. You cannot just use your brain and come up with easy answer. So you're stuck. And when you cannot do anything, what do? That's the koan. And this koan exemplifies the way to get out of the difficulty. So there's a way that you can answer the koan to a roshi, which I didn't do, but I can see how I might have processed. There are many ways to process, and we're not going to go into it. So that example of koan, the Zen koan, point basically the same of how to deal with the difficulties. When you get stuck, what do? First is the case of going across the street, safer. Second was the case, what was the second one? I don't remember. Short-term memory was another case. And the third one is also another case to point that whether it's the going across, or stroke, or thief got stuck, you find a way. And we go through that all the time. The fourth example, maybe, I had an occasion, I still remember. I left perhaps a mobile or iPhone somewhere in the house, and I couldn't find it. At the time, I didn't have any way of calling or whatever, but it was a fairly big house. And it took time. I don't remember how I found it. But obviously, well, in this case, it was in the garage where I was doing some work. And I remember putting this iPhone on top of the surfboard and get involved, and then I forgot about the whole thing. But eventually I found it. So when you have done something lost, you go through in your mind figuring out, you give up, and idea may be just in front of you. So you notice that, and then you go, aha. The idea generation, I posted the video in Chinese saying, they say the best place to come up with ideas or wisdom is in the bathroom, in the bathroom, in toilet, in the toilet, on the horse when you're riding a horse for traveling, and at the bed when you have to sleep. Because each of those three space positions are such that thinking. Then the idea pops up. So that's another example. But all of those, I think 4 or 5 examples I mentioned, had some commonality. And whether you call it Zen or how to come up with an idea or remember things and reactivate, there are certain ways that we can find the solution. And I use the word samadhi is the basic state of mind. Just like in the case of the toilet and the bed and on the horse, when your mind is quiet, no thinking. So you are not restricted. I can give you another example, and then we'll close this up conversation. And this is the point that is also interesting. When I was meditating the first time, Vipassana, for 10 days, on the 8th day, I was in pain. I couldn't get out of it. More I tried, I feel like I was getting stuck, and I wanted to go to the hospital because the pain was severe. And I shared this story elsewhere, but in that situation, what did I do? Nothing you could do. But suddenly, some idea popped up. And that's the thing, that's the first idea. I thought, why am I having this pain? Is that because I'm trying to escape from the pain? And that thought was somewhere in my mind that just popped up because I read something in Zen, maybe Daisetsu's book. Whatever the case was, that thought triggered me to think differently. Instead of trying to get out of the pain, which is my self or ego naturally trying to do, because that's what we are conditioned. Because I want to save my body and so forth, you struggle, but you're supposed to sit for a long time, sometimes 2 hours, and I couldn't because I was determined to sit through. And when that thought popped up, is that because I'm trying to escape? And that changed my mind from confined state of ego or self to preserve to something I open up. What's going on? Am I trying to escape? And then I look at myself, I'm closed, my eyes are closed, and checking my shoulder the body and other areas, and all of a sudden my cells in the body start to jump all over, and it's very difficult to describe, but the energy is building up from my core, like bottom chakra, and like in the, what's the word? Dynamo. And in some sort of a space where all the cells are jumping around, and I felt like I'm into this strong sense of life energy building up and moving, and my body started to move, and then excited, and it's very difficult to explain unless you have the similar expression, but it went all the way through my body, and I was totally in ecstasy. And all the pains are gone, and I have my smile. And what happened? I observed, I let things happen, I let my self-ego go away, and the result is what they call satori, liberation, or banga, in vipassana term, or enlightenment or awakening. Because the confined state is built my own confined mind to do the habitual thing of certain things, like in the case of going across the road or using a brain to come up with new idea when you are confined. So it's another case of noticing there's something beyond the mind that help me, us, and all to live and go beyond the hurdle. And if you think about it, the fact that you're alive is a miracle. Why not? Maybe you don't think like that, but I truly not think, believe, but aware and know that the law of universe has brought us to live on this earth, and it's a miracle. We are just the dust of particles from the universe. The nature had a way to put those together to make me a living being, even to be able to think, as much as the cat and monkeys and trees and all that is alive with this magical power. And Satori, or enlightenment, awakening, is touch that. Boom! And that was so exciting. And you used the word like a nirvana or blissful sensation. I was whole in bliss. Smile. I'll never forget that. 24 years ago in Vipassana, California Vipassana Center. I call that my home. So that's a new way, noticing something else. So starting from the case of, going across the street, or my brother's case of stroke, or Zen koan, and even finding things that you forgot, or Chinese saying, they all point the magical power. Unless you directly experience it, this is just a talk. But with certain awareness, I see, even without any training, there are people who are quite equipped with this. I can talk about many, many, many people's case. It's wonderful when you master some skill. You can access those potentials, and in the situation you are facing, you can bring out the best of what you can. So you utilize the best of your talent. And that's the reason I'm doing this YouTube. me see if I can do this. And hope that me, myself, to have that connection to the root of who I am, and to share the idea to anyone who wants to listen to make the most of their life, even possibly going beyond the difficulties, including the physical thing, mental thing, and more. I hear the birds singing outside. I feel like they're saying sadhu, sadhu, which means I agree, I agree. Maybe it's my hallucination, hallucination or delusion, or it's reality, depending on what may come out of it. Thank you. Have a good day and good life. I hope my brother get better. I hope all living beings be happy.